Hello everyone, welcome to the editorial analysis of the Shankar IAS Academy brought to you by the Civilspedia team. So these are the topics for discussion for today's editorial analysis. These two articles from the Hindu and Indian Express discusses about various topics. The first article, the deeper meaning of declining school rate, from the Hindu discusses about the impact of the declining school enrollment and the impact of declining fertility rate in the demographic dividend population. Next is article from the Indian Express called Policing and Not Protection, discusses about the UCC, that is the Uniform Civil Code, and their debates revolving around the live-in relationships. So in light of these two articles, let us see the mains discussion along with the mains practice question. I also ask the students to put in their perspectives in the answer writing in the comment section for every these two articles. Now look into this news, the deeper meaning of declining school enrollment. So here this article is very important as it discusses about the impact of declining school enrollment rate and at the same time the impact of the falling fertility rates. So we can go through the article through its important points to understand what the idea is all about. First, as the world's most populous country, which is India, it hopes to reap, that is to increase or get benefited from its demographic dividend due to its increasing youth population. So here they are telling how India can be benefited from the idea or the concept of the demographic dividend, where it is happening due to the increase of the youth population. So youth population can be taken into account as the working population who are between 59 age of population. So what they are telling is here, demographers and many policy makers know that this window of opportunity, that is the demographic dividend, can remain open but only for limited period of time. So they are telling that how this opportunity is short timed because of the declining school enrollment over the past decade marks the beginning of the end of this period. So this means that India may become older even before becoming rich. So what they are telling is how the declining school enrollment will be affecting the end of the demographic dividend, that is the beginning of the demographic dividend, and how it will have consequences such as India would be having the younger population without even becoming a richer population, a richer country, as because of the declining school enrollment and less fertility rate, India would be having only youth population in one place, that is the working population in one place, and here in forward, that is the dependent population, which is the children who are very important when it comes to the school enrollment, and here the aging population who are the elders will be having their decline altogether. So without this increase and with their decrease, the youth population would be stagnant in India and they won't be contributing that much before for India to become rich. So this is the idea of the article here. So here we can discuss how it is important to increase the school enrollment and how it impacts in the upcoming growing of our India nation. So investments in education, investment and funds in education is very important right now. So let's discuss the article. Before that, let us see a mains question, and I kindly ask the aspirants to put in their answers in the comment and it will be reviewed. This is the question. India's declining school enrollment signals the early of and end of its demographic dividend, posing significant economic and social challenges. So analyze. So it's a very interesting juxtapose, or it's a very interesting intersection of lot of perspectives which can be analyzed through this question. So we can see the later part in the slides. First, we need to know what is demographic dividend. So demographic dividend can be explained or defined as a economic growth with potential when the working age population, that is the 15 to 64, exceeds the dependent population, which is the children and elderly. So here it requires investments in education, healthcare and in employment. So any country with the demographic dividend can have the opportunity to increase their economic as well as their social growth. Now we need to see the connection between school enrollment and demographic dividend. So when there is involvement of the school enrollment, when there is increase of school enrollment, there is first it brings in economic opportunity and economic growth. So when people complete their school and then get into their working youth population, there can be having better job investments, better job increase, innovation and scope for entrepreneurship and skill development. Next is having human capital formation. Here it increases workforce with skilled people and it increases productivity ultimately. And also it increases the social mobility, where there is reduced poverty among the marginalized communities as well. There would be inequality solved and there would be gender disparity on focus. And finally there would be workforce preparedness. Here foundation for higher education and other vocational training and other skill development can increase the opportunity to for them to be enrolled into the workforce ultimately. So we know for the demographic dividend to be sustained or the demographic dividend to be made its impact in the economy, the school enrollment is very important. But it's not the case in India. Here, according to the article, there is falling school enrollment, and we will be seeing different factors which supports it. First, because of the demographic factors. So first is the declining birth rate. The total fertility rate is gone down to 2.01 in 2022, which is below the replacement level 2.1. And next is this lower growth has brought in drop of 17.3 million students who are at the age of 6 to 17, directly impacts the enrollment. So not only the fertility rate but also a direct impact by the dropping of the students from the schools. So this data is directly from the Unified District Information System of Education Plus data. So here the UDISE Plus is a unified information system to gather information and data analytics about all of the schools and data related to it being in one unified place. So it comes under the Ministry of Education. Now looking into the socio-economic factors, first is the economic hardships. Here post pandemic there has been income loss for many families and there has been increase in the child labor, especially in the place of rural, for the family to sustain. Next is rural and urban migration. Here parents moving from rural to urban having migration have disrupted the children's education. Next would be private school preference. So here declining faith in the government schools have made parents to have belief in their private school systems. So there is also a decline of students being enrolled in the schools. Looking into the policy and administration challenges now, and they also stand as a factor here. First is the Aadhaar based cleaning. So removing of the fake or removing of the non-used Aadhaar cards which and the duplicates have ultimately brought in the data on the school enrollment. Next is school closures. Here almost according to the ASER annual status of education report, it is currently announced by Pratham NGO. So here according to this report almost 79,000 plus schools are closed since 2017 to 2018. And finally having quality concerns. See issues like poor infrastructure, teacher shortages, outdated curricula are all important challenges posed due to the small decline in the school enrollment. Challenges in the government initiative. So this can also be taken as a factor. Here there is inconsistent implementation of certain initiatives. First is the Right to Education Act and the Samagraha Shiksha Abhiyan. So here we can see Samagraha Shiksha during the year of 2018 to 19, there has been a proposal to treat school education holistically from pre-nursery to class 12. So it's a overarching program for school education sector extending to class 12, therefore having broader goal of improving school effectiveness and building the education and gender gap. So here it includes three schemes, which is the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, which is the Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan, and the teacher education. So it the Samagraha Shiksha culminates all these three initiatives. So this helps to harmonize the program or scheme of school enrollment and school education and their data, particularly in using the state, district and sub-district. So there has been inconsistent implementation on these initiatives. Next is learning crisis. Here there are poor educational foundational literacy. It is also through the ASER reports. Next is having digital divide. There are limited online access, especially during the period of COVID at the place of rural. There has been a lot of hindrance for the students to get their education through the internet, and then having a low budget. So 2.9 to 3.1 percentage of GDP has been only recommended versus 6 percentage in the GDP for the education in itself. Now we have to see what is the way ahead to improve this increase of the school enrollment. First is revamping, that is changing the government schools, having improved infrastructure, having improved teacher training and having increased learning outcomes would be very sufficient. Next is having policy regulation and policy population. Here it addresses the workforce needs also, so that there is involvement of the workforce population to the nation, so that there is increase in the income also. Next is having vocational education. It helps to strengthen skill based training for both the students as well as for the youth population in every sectors. Next is having targeted interventions focusing on marginalized communities such as girl child incentives such as midday meals can help. And next is public private partnerships to enhance quality and accessibility. So I hope the article is clear, and even the article has mentioned, we can see they mentioned some important statistics. So I asked the students to give it a read, and it's a very interesting article to also read. So I hope the article is clear to understand. So the next article title Policing Not Protection. Here the Uniform Civil Code, that is the UCC, have regulations on the live-in relationship where the article feels that it can expose people to many risks. So here the Uttarakhand's UCC emphasis on live-in relationships and its regulation have brought many debates ranging from legal to social factors. So here the non-marital relationships of cohabitation, popularly known as live-in relationships in India, has been having a lot of debates, especially in the popular culture. So here the article discusses how the states seem to be intervening in the live-in relationships through a lot of regulations and trying to impose the importance of traditional norms of cohabitation, probably known as marriage. So in light of this article, let us see various perspectives related to this issue and also about UCC. This is the mains question. So here the Uttarakhand Uniform Civil Code seeks to regulate live-in relationships, raising concerns about individual autonomy and legal overreach. Critically analyze the implications of such regulations on personal freedom, social norms and gender rights in India. So this seems to be an interesting question. I asked the students to put in their perspectives in the comment section for this mains question, and it will be reviewed. First, let us have an idea about UCC. The Uniform Civil Code comes under the Article 44 of Directive Principles of the State Policy. Here, the state shall endeavour to secure a Uniform Civil Code, that is the UCC. So here, UCC always has the tension between the fundamental rights versus the DPSP. Here, according to the fundamental rights, the Article 25 speaks about the religious freedom of the citizens to adhere their own religious practices in their own religious space. But UCC brings in the idea of having a common set of laws regardless of the religion of the citizens. So here there is that friction of tension between the fundamental rights versus the DPSP's UCC. So looking into the judicial support, the Supreme Court has brought in the advocation of the UCC through the cases of Shah Bano case in 1985 and Sarla Mudgal case in 1995. Now looking into the government stand of UCC, here the Law Commission of India in 2018 have suggested personal law reforms instead of imposing the UCC. And next, looking into state initiatives, Goa has already the civil code being practiced, and Uttarakhand would be having their drafting on the UCC now. Now looking into the objectives of UCC. First, having a legal uniformity. So UCC focuses on having single law replacing diverse personal laws according to the citizens. So here they are trying to bring in the idea of uniformity regardless of age, sex, gender, religion and so on. Next is having gender equality. It prevents discrimination, for example triple talaq issue and other many property rights issue and so on. Next is having national integration. So here UCC its main focus is to strengthen the secularism and unity of our country India. Next is having simplification of the rules and regulations. So here it reduces the legal complexities which has been arrived due to a lot of personal laws. So here it reduces the burden of having complexities and the complexity to understand a law relating to a lot of different perspectives of different people. So ultimately it reduces the complexities when comprehending a personal law. Next is adhering to the global standards. It aligns with the secular civil codes, especially in other countries. For example, you can take France and Germany for example. They would be having their own form of UCC code. Now looking into the challenges in the UCC implementation, first is addressing the religious sensitivity. So here a lot of people are having that fear of erosion of their own traditional norms when it comes to marriage and cohabitation, and there is a lot of religious sensitivities which is being hurted in, especially in their cultural practices. Next is diverse legal system. Here there needs to be integration of many complexities around many religious, uh, for example Hindu communities of Hindu, Buddhist, Jain and Parsis and so on. So integration of their personal laws will be having a lot of complexities, or as it comprises of different people from different society. Next is having judicial conflicts. So through consistent rulings through case by case, there has been for and against for UCC. So there has been almost 50 to 50 percentage for implementing UCC and not implementing UCC. So this inconsistency in the judicial rulings has been a biggest challenge for UCC implementation. Next is political hesitation. Here the electoral of our country are having a lot of concerns in implementing the UCC. And finally there is a need for consensus. So first it needs to have well researched framework which is very crucial to implement such a universal law which can adhere everyone's perspective and which can adhere everyone's equality in one framework, which is very difficult. So there needs to be consensus as well as a well researched framework and a plan. Now looking into the Uttarakhand UCC and Live-in. So here in Uttarakhand there has been a mandatory registration which has been proposed for anyone who's in the live-in relationship. So they have to be registering their cohabitation. Next is there would be having a police verification about their cohabitation, and this highly disturbs the privacy concerns, and this has been discussed in the article. So when there is intervention of the state in itself, the privacy has been hindered somewhere. Next is on the idea of protection. Here there has been given safeguards for both the partners as well as the children who are out of the live-in relationships, and they are considered to be legitimate. Next is having impact on freedom. Here as I told before, article 21 has been highly hindered due to the privacy concerns. And looking for opportunity to be the president, here there is a potential for the other states also to be following. So Uttarakhand have been given their draft, and already we did see Goa has also been following a universal civil code. Now let us have an idea about live-in relationships in India. Here the definition according to the Indira Sharma as well as R.K. Sharma case of the 2013, the definition is relationships in the nature of marriage can be defined as the live-in. So here in India there has been not any explicitly legal recognition in law, but judicially there has been a lot of rulings case by cases and it has been recognized. So the framework for live-in itself is been shaping through the constant rulings in the court by case of case. Then there is importance of maintenance of their relationship which has been granted in long-term cohabitation under the case of Velusamy of 2010. Here the SE rulings have given that live-in is not a illegal action under the case of S. Kushbu 2010, and the children who are born out of the live-in relationships are legitimate through the case rulings in the year of 2015, and it has been given by the Supreme Court. And there is judicial protection and safeguards in case of abuse, harassment for the partners, and especially for women and the children, and there has been a maintenance case. Now, looking into their rights and protections here, under the factor of property and inheritance, there is no automatic rights. So, in terms of the inheritance, there is no automatic rights of the inheritance or the succession. Here, according to the Hindu Succession Act, it doesn't apply. So, the Hindu Succession Act of 1956, it applies to only Hindus, Jains, Buddhists, and Sikhs. So, the Hindu Succession Act doesn't apply to Christians, Muslims, and Parsis. So, here the Hindu Succession Act does not apply to the live-in, especially through the property and inheritance. Here the courts can decide on the cases relating to the live-in relationships, and right now it needs more clarity on the framework of live-in relationships in itself. So, unlike marriages, here the live-in partners has to prove their cohabitation for any legal purposes. Now, looking into the factor of Domestic Violence Act of 2005, here the partners who are in protection are in the live-in relationships are guaranteed. Here, right to residence and protection against domestic violence, harassment through all of the factors such as physical, mental, and through properties, there has been protection given. Here it finally expands to having legal provisions and having impact of regulation. Next is it has concerns over the privacy, which is the Article 21, where they need to be proved to have a cohabitation for many legal purposes. So there is intervening of the state, and there is intervention of the police due to the over policing. And finally, there is a lot of stigma around, especially for women who are into the live-in relationships, and also the children who are born out of the live-in relationships are having a lot of stigma faced. There is an issue of misuse of those laws and legal protections, and this can lead to the ultimate misusing of those protection for more harassment and domestic violence. So there needs to be a judicial review needed. Now, looking into suggestions and solutions, here first we need to have legal clarity. Here it needs to define the rights and responsibilities of both the partners. There need to be amendment of law and safeguarding anyone against the misuse of the protection of and the legal concerns. Next is looking into the privacy. First, there needs to be the idea of voluntary registration. It shouldn't be mandatory in nature. Next is to prevent the misuse and having awareness programs. Next solution can be having to safeguard women's right. Here protection such as maintenance, property rights, inheritance, legal aid can need to be having more provisions, and there needs to be more definition and amending of laws relating to it, and having judicial reforms. Here there needs to be intervention of fast track courts, and there need to be training, especially for anyone dealing with such any delicate cases relating to live-in relationships, and having updation of laws. So I hope the article is clear, and I hope the article seems to be quite interesting to have a lot of perspectives. So don't forget to try the mains question which has been given and post it in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you are at the end of the video. Don't forget to give a like, comment, and a share. And to further not to miss any other content, subscribe to our channel. Thank you and have a nice day.